This ain't no joke, this ain't no game. This that CSZ game. They said pull up, so I came. You better put some respect on their name. Yeah, 55 was goody. Kill the vibe, how could he? Big card on the hoodie. Let me break it down for you fully. This ain't your average broadcast. This ain't just no podcast. The mother show spread fake news. We just call them broadcasts. West, Joey, Sam, Sean, Dalton, and you know that boy Higgy. He said he don't want no small fries. Tell them they better make them biggie. Yeah, you already know what we be on. We got the crown, we hold the throne. We throw them L's and you take them home. When they ring the bells, you know that it's home. The bar set, we setting the tone. If we set it, then set it in stone. Now sit in the seat and set up your phone. You in the Cardinal Sports Zone.
Welcome back, everybody, to the latest edition of the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Wallman. On today's show, we're going to bring you another exciting edition of GameDay Prep. For those of y'all that don't know, this is only the second episode of GameDay Prep on the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast network. I don't know why I haven't been doing this all along. First, I love talking to people. I love meeting new people, and it was just after the EKU win, gutsy win, pulled it out, and I was like, I need to start contacting other good people around the country and getting their, from the opposing teams and getting their opinions. So we did it with UCF. That was really fun. Last week I talked to TJ Pettinger from Florida State, the Florida State Network. He was a delight to talk to, but this is the one that I've had marked on. When I decided to do this, I wrote down all the teams, and I had to look up a lot of the places, a lot of the teams, but one I did not have to was Wake Forest. Today, we're going to talk to the publisher of the widely respected Demon Deacons Digest over at 247 Sports and writer of the Demon Sports Extra. He is the legend, Les Johns. Les, how you doing today, my man?
Well, I'm doing a lot better after that ridiculous introduction there, Jeremy. I really appreciate all the kudos, man.
Man, I think you deserve it. I think you earned it. I have been following you. I would say I went back because one thing I like to do first is I like to go back and look. I search on Twitter, first off, to make sure that I've never had a negative exchange with who I'm about to talk to, because if I have, I'd like to go ahead and delete those real quick, right?
Of course, right.
I did search, and actually there were some people in Louisville, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, that had started a Twitter fight for something. I don't know. I think we had just lost, and it was uber sensitive time on Twitter, just like it is always.
Like that.
Right. You may have tweeted out something that wasn't anti-Kentucky, and everybody jumped on you, and I got on there. I was like, leave him alone. He's really good. He's always been good to me. So apparently we already had a really good relationship, so like I said, I got on there, and I was like, yeah, this is who I have to have for the Wake Forest. I didn't even look. There was no further to look as far as I was concerned.
If I recall correctly, there was a couple contentious exchanges with Louisville fans around the WikiLeaks era. But, that's going to happen during that time, of course. So.
Absolutely. Well, people love to listen to the show because I not only ask just regular questions, but I ask the hard-hitting questions. So with that being said, we're going to touch on the big – the blow-up, if you want to call it. A few years back, you did take a huge hit on social media from the Louisville fans. You think it's from WikiLeaks? So you don't remember what that was about specifically?
No, I think it was WikiLeaks, and then I think there was even a little bit of disgruntlement over the way I portrayed the finish of the 2019 game, because I'm still to this moment confident that Wake recovered that last onside kick. Now, would they have scored again and done any damage? I mean, Wake had played terrible to that point to get in that spot. So, it's their fault. You never should lose or win a game by one player, one call.
Absolutely.
It's never the fault of that one call. You've done something to get yourself in that position. So, and Wake, did not play well in the first half against Louisville. And, that started the unraveling of their season. We're kind of in the same spot this year where Wake all of a sudden is kind of the hot commodity in the ACC, and Louisville has a chance to come in and kind of spoil that. So it's like 2019 all over again.
Now I wanted to real quick, because I don't like to leave any stones unturned. I went ahead and did it again. Searched at Les_Johns and at Jeremy_CSZ. And we're going to do this live. I know it may not be the best radio, but I don't care. It's our show today, so we're going to do whatever we want.
It could be the best radio. Right?
Absolutely. Oh, so you kind of did start it with us that day. I was trying to take up for you wholeheartedly, but I guess It says, wait, I just got home from Wake Basketball Fan Fest. You're telling me Boston College scored 40 points and beat U of L? And that started everything. Now, I very, very jokingly said back, because we've always had that kind of Twitter dialogue with each other. You say, I don't take things serious. You don't take things serious. I was like, oh, and you go, sorry, you're telling me Boston College scored 45 points and beat U of L? You've got to be lying. To which I responded, wait, Wake Forest has a basketball fan fest? Well, now we know who's lying. Very, very funny back and forth. And then you're like, well, I've got video proof of my claim. And I was like, well, I've got video proof of my claim. And that's where the idiots jumped on and just tried to, like, beat a dead horse with it. There's more than that, though. I'm looking back here.
What year was that?
That was 2017.
I was about to say, I had to be firmly in the middle of the Danny Manning era. I remember a fan fest at Joel Coliseum. And there were some fans there. You got to remember that was John Collins' era, too.
Absolutely.
So the Deeks had some good things going then.
I loved me some John Collins. I loved his style of play and everything.
He's such a good dude too. So he's one of those guys. When I run into him now, he'd give me a great big hug. So I'm a big John Collins fan.
Absolutely.
And obviously he's doing well at the next level. So yeah, they did have a fan fest. I would say probably rough estimate 250 fans at most.
It was just a clapback, Les. I know y'all have fans just as well as everybody else. It was but now I specifically, the one that I had to step in and take up for you was not that. I thought it was. I went back to June the 19th of 2017. Les's tweet says, interesting, Louisville fans seem to believe the university owes them something for Strippergate scandals and sanctions. You replied to our website, Cardinal Sports Zone. You replied to our tweet. Now, I'm not sure. Let me click on that real quick. Nope, it was deleted, so I don't know if it was something where we were asked to take it down, to which I responded, well, I guess it was something to do with baseball, because I said I didn't mean like raising ticket prices, just an apology, something along the lines that says that they're sorry. You responded back. We responded back and forth. I'm going to not bore everybody with all of them. You said, I really think if I were a U of L fan, I'd want a fresh start in basketball, which we got. But I don't guess there's any stomach for that right now. To which I responded, I really enjoy your Wake coverage, but not so much on the U of L part.
I remember that. I do remember that. I was man, I didn't mean to hurt him like that. So.
Then you laughed, I laughed. You said you wish you were in Omaha, and I said, well, that's where we're at right now. Have a good day. And we left it, like I said, it's always been real lighthearted. I'm like one of the few people, I try not to take Twitter seriously because it's just, there's just no benefit to that. So let's get on to, I did not mean to spend so much time talking about that. So let's get on to the next question. Wake Forest has been a fun rivalry for us. We didn't expect coming into the ACC that it was going to be much of a rivalry at all. Y'all had y'all's good seasons. We were really on the cusp of building I don't want to say like a 5-star program, but we were right there at the 3-star, fringing on a 4-star status with our Sugar Bowl success. Teddy Bridgewater, Coach Strong, all that stuff. We thought, of course, when you enter a conference, you look for the teams that you think are going to be the teams. Like in the SEC, it's normally Kentucky and Vanderbilt. When we got into the ACC, we're like, okay, Boston College and Wake, and that's been far from the case. Both teams have given us their best shot. We've given them our best shot. But for Wake Forest, it all started with the Orange Bowl, then the 2015 night game comeback that we had. You talked about it earlier. Evan Conley with the game-winning score when it was like 101-100. Y'all were ranked, and he just kind of got out of the way, scooted on in. Y'all were ranked pretty high, I believe, that like 14th, maybe 15th, but the Cards, right? Yeah, something like that. The Cards own the overall series 6-2, but it's a series full of streaks. We won the first 4, then y'all won 2, we won 2. Has Louisville been a good addition to the ACC in your opinion, and is it one of your all's favorite rivalries?
I think definitely, especially from an on-the-court perspective, Louisville's been a fantastic addition to the ACC. There are a lot of ACC purists that would argue that the off-the-court stuff has been, kind of a black eye to the conference. And I think that most Louisville fans, would kind of agree, right? Yeah. No one likes the things that you guys have went through, right? So that aside, I think when you think of what Louisville brings in terms of basketball, what they bring in terms of investments in their programs, incredible college baseball program. Dan McDonald just has it going there. And, even in soccer and some of the Olympic sports, Louisville's a great addition to the conference. And it's been a game that I've enjoyed seeing. It's also a game that, since I'm from Kentucky originally, if I head back to Louisville to cover a game, it gives me a chance to see some family and friends. So, I think, once again, I think Louisville's been a great addition. And it's been the rivalry in football has been obviously unexpected, but enjoyable. It's had its roller coaster moments. You've got the Matt Coburn, decommitment when he was asked to gray shirt at the last moment by Bobby Petrino. And then he comes to Wake Forest, and then he kind of sticks the knife in the back of the Cardinal Nation, in back-to-back games. And then, of course, the Wakey Leaks brouhaha. So, it's been a lot of fun.
And just to clarify, there are a group of people that like to see us suffer, and they're called Lexingtonians, and they live about 60 miles to the east of us. But no, and it's funny that you brought up those two things specifically, because that's my next question. It kind of transitions into that. I mentioned good things that happened in this rivalry on both sides, except there were cases like WikiLeaks and Matt Coburn that happened too. Wake Forest, I think, and you can correct me because I know you've been around both places, but I feel like that both Wake and Louisville are alike, a lot alike in many ways. We're both the underdogs in our respective states. For the most part, the fan base are really like hard-working, blue-collar people. There's a lot of history in both states. I know you used to work here in Kentucky, but did you ever work here specifically in Louisville?
No, I didn't ever work specifically in Louisville.
Okay.
I did. I was a sports editor at the Kentucky New Era in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I was there for a year before we moved to North Carolina. And I don't think – I've been to Louisville to cover games, back when I was there.
Right.
And obviously since I've been covering the Deacs, because I've been there for both. I've been there for the baseball ACC tournament that was at Louisville that year. Mm-hmm. And then I've been there for both football and basketball between Wake and Louisville. So, and then as just like a fan, I've been in I can't say Papa John's Cardinal Stadium anymore. My bad. I've been in Cardinal Stadium to watch a rainy game against Cincinnati multiple years ago. Me and my son were I think it was the same day. I know UK had Gillespie as the head coach at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was a steady rain against Cincinnati. And UK lost to some ridiculous no-name opponent in basketball that same night.
Gardner-Webb.
The crowd went nuts when the score was announced. So I've been there, and then I've been obviously to the Yum Center for concerts. I've seen Springsteen in the Yum Center. I know Billy Joel, those type of things. So I've been around a little bit.
Awesome. Would you compare the two cities and cultures as far as the college cultures? Like, I feel like it's fairly similar. Now, I know I don't represent every demographic in the city of Louisville, but from what I've seen from my time that I spent down in North Carolina, I just feel like the two schools, if you wipe the colors off their jerseys and you didn't give them any helmets with any stickers, that they both work just as hard, they both play just as hard, and their communities are very similar as far as the work ethic and things like that.
Yeah, especially when you consider the fact that in North Carolina, Wake is I hate to say it, but oftentimes the third or fourth, down the pecking order in terms of, you have the huge in-state school in North Carolina, and then, North Carolina State's got a massive student body. And then in basketball, Duke kind of soaks up a lot of the national attention too.
Yeah.
So if Wake Forest fans really have to fight for what's there, so to speak. So I kind of get what you're saying in terms of that blue collar mentality, and that does kind of bleed over into the actual DNA of the sports teams as well.
Yeah, and there's only maybe a handful of teams where I look at them, I'm like, that's kind of like, that's the Louisville of this, and I'm sure that they probably say, well, that's the Wake Forest of this state, or just various different examples. But let's get to some game talk. Wake Forest was a decent team last year, but they weren't great, in my opinion anyway. So far this season, they do look like a top 3 ACC team, more so after yesterday. But they have played 3 FCS caliber teams in Norfolk State, ODU, and Florida State. Oh, wait a minute. Florida State's not an FCS school. I'm sorry. They just seem like it. That's just my dig at Florida State. I know it wasn't that great, but I tried. What's changed between last year and this season? Is there new personnel getting to playing time that's made this team look – because it looks completely different to me. You all run the ball really, really well. The quarterback, not that it was a big issue last year, but a lot more I felt – I watched all y'all's games yesterday. When I got up early, watched all the games so I could be well-versed and informed when I talked to you. And I watched the game from last year as well. And it just looked like the quarterback is taking better care of the ball this year. He's only thrown 1 interception, I believe. And it just looks like it's a whole different team to me.
There's a lot to that, Jeremy. And I will say that last year, and I cannot remember the number right now, so I'm a bad reporter. But Sam Hartman actually broke the Wake Forest program record last year for most passes thrown without an interception. Right?
Okay. He
only had 1 interception through the entire regular season. Now, once again, the regular season for Wake last year was only 8 games, right?
Right.
But then Hartman threw 4 interceptions in a 22-snap period against Wisconsin in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So in terms of him handling and taking care of the ball better than last year, his entire body of work would indicate that it's kind of just a carryover from last year, right? Except for that Duke's Mayo Bowl, appearance against Wisconsin, in which, pretty much nothing went right for him in the second half. In terms of the team looking completely different, here's what I would say. I would say mid-season last year, Wake Forest looked like they were a pretty good team. They defeated Virginia at home 40-23, and then they had their highest ranked win, maybe in program history, when they defeated Virginia Tech at home, right?
Right.
But then it's like the early season featured a couple of impromptu bye weeks because other folks had COVID issues. Well, then later in the season, Wake had COVID issues. And then right as they started to get out of their quarantine where they missed 2 or 3 weeks, then games start dropping on them. Like Notre Dame drops out of a game. Florida State drops out of coming to Winston-Salem the day before they're supposed to come. And internally, there actually was a lot of acrimony, I would say, amongst some team members, like, why are we going through all this? It's been like a month since we played, and there were some guys that stepped away. So, but the remainder of the team kind of galvanized, and that group has come back now, and they've had a full off season. They had a normal spring camp. Last year, they only had 5 spring camp practices. Wake Forest is a developmental program. They're not going to do very well when you only have 5 spring practices.
Right.
They were one of the last teams to get back on campus last year because some would argue within the fan base that the administration was a bit overcautious, right? So they got back to school really late. Like they were one of the last 2 teams in the conference to get back. They didn't have their strength, they didn't have the conditioning, and they didn't have any time working together in spring camp. And for Wake Forest, that just meant it just kind of all fell apart down the stretch. So the team you saw at Cardinal Stadium last year, there's a lot of the same names on that roster, but it's just a completely different, team right now. They've had a spring camp. They've had a strength and conditioning program. They've added that some of the guys who were out last year because of injuries have gotten healthy. They made significant upgrades on the transfer portal. And they had 9 super seniors return. So one of the knocks against Wake Forest in years in which they started off good, like that 2019 season where Louisville knocked them off, right? They started 7-1 that season and were nationally ranked, but then lost 4 of the last 5 games down the stretch because they got decimated with injuries. This is a team that actually has enough depth to sustain an injury here and an injury there. And that's, I think, one of the biggest differences in this Wake Forest team.
Yeah, and I agree with, and I'll say this, and I know it sounds like such a basic answer, but another year's experience for a solid team can only make them better. I think that what I read, now this was before the game yesterday, and I'm sure y'all didn't do anything more than pad these stats, but I think I saw y'all are averaging 5.5 yards per rush. That worries me because that's the weakness in our defense. It wasn't in the second half yesterday. It actually saved us yesterday, but for overall, it has been. Now, just to talk a little bit more about Sam Hartman, because I want to give him more attention. It does look like so far this year he's sitting at about half of his production from last year. His completion percentage is 8 points higher. He had 2,200 passing yards last year. He's got almost 1,000 right now. He's got 9 touchdowns already through the first 4 games. He had 13 all of last season. 5 picks on the year last year. He's only thrown the ball 1 time. It's looking like he's a better quarterback. Rating, and I know this means hardly anything at all, but ratings-wise, statistics-wise, he's a better quarterback on the road barely than he is at home. It's looking like at home he's about 162 is his quarterback rating, 171 away. Still, both are very, very good ratings. So, yeah, this is not one of those games that we're coming into where we think, oh, this is going to be a slam dunk. Actually, I don't know a lot of people who are very optimistic just because of our consistency. If Louisville can get consistent this year, and I'll talk about that. I don't want to jump forward too much. It's going to be me and the rest of the guys. We do the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast. We actually recorded our Sunday show this morning, and now but we were sitting here talking, and we're like, man, I really wish this Wake Forest game was at the end of the year. It could have been a blockbuster. But this is one of those times. We'll get again. I don't want to spoil the rest of the show. Really, really quick, since we're at halftime of the show, we do want to thank our sponsors: Fitness Market, Shack in the Back Barbecue, Four Pegs Beer Lounge, Derby City Lawn and Landscaping, All American Pool and Supply. Let's get back to it. We did find out shortly before the podcast was recording tonight that Wake Forest has jumped into the top 25. So congratulations on that. We like playing ranked opponents. I feel like Louisville plays better overall for the most part against ranked opponents. So congratulations on that. In the preseason, was that one of the expectations that you all would be ranked at some point during the season?
I think the answer for that is yes, and it's twofold. One, I have said repeatedly, I'm fortunate, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm fortunate and blessed to cover Wake Forest athletics for many reasons. But one of the reasons is that Dave Clawson, despite the WikiLeaks deal, is completely open in terms of fall camp. For instance, I got to see every second of fall camp except for like leading directly up to game week, right? So like from the first snap until about 7 or 8 practices left, I got to see every second of fall camp. And you get to learn a lot about the team during that period. You get a great chance to see how the depth chart is coming together. Guys who are rising, guys who aren't really breaking through, and just to kind of see the position battles and how the offense is going against the defense, that type of stuff. You get to see a lot. I got to see this team come together during the fall, and my perception was that I truly believed that this was the best Wake Forest team in the Clawson era. I've been here since 2014 covering Wake Forest athletics, basically completely coincide with the Clawson tenure. And I believe this is his best team. This is his most complete unit. From when you look at the depth, when you look at the balance, when you look at the talent across the board, this is his best team. Now, the flip side of that is other team, Wake's not the only team with super seniors. Wake isn't the only team that has a little bit more depth than usual. So the conventional wisdom, at least in my mind, was that a lot of teams in college football were going to be a little bit better than usual. Right. So I didn't know how Dave Clawson having his best team at Wake Forest would translate completely in terms of wins and losses. I wasn't willing to say, hey, I think this can be a 10-win season. But I was willing to say that I think it was Clawson's best team and that they had the opportunity to do good things. So when you look at that and you look at the schedule to open up the season, you've already referenced that they played essentially, you said 3 FCS level teams. I don't think even Florida State writers didn't think going into the season that they were going to be much more than a 6-win team. And when you're looking at projections now, they may end up getting out of the season with just 1 or 2 wins, right? So Florida State's obviously not what we're used to seeing with Florida State. Old Dominion and Norfolk State obviously were games Wake Forest just simply had to win. And then you look at the other games early in the season for Wake. They are teams that weren't necessarily as highly regarded entering the season. That includes Louisville, right?
Right,
And
absolutely.
Syracuse, Duke, and who am I leaving out? Syracuse, Duke, Florida State. I feel like I'm leaving out
I do too.
ACC team.
I do too. I'm not Virginia Tech, not NC State.
Oh, it's Virginia on the road. The game that Wake just won. There's Louisville, Syracuse, Duke, and Florida State were four teams that all four were kind of projected towards the bottom of the conference, So honestly, when I went through game by game, I actually picked Wake to finish 9-3 this season, but I had them losing at Virginia. So anyway, and even leading up to that game, I stuck with my pick. I actually picked Wake Forest to lose that game 41-38. So, and obviously I was way wrong. But I considered this to be the best team Wake Forest had in the Clawson era, and the schedule laid out pretty favorably early to where I felt that early this season they had a really good chance to get ranked. I figured it'd probably be more like 5 or 6 games in as opposed to 4, though.
Absolutely. And real quick, I want to go ahead and reset for a second. We're here with, and if you clicked on the podcast, you know who we're talking to, but this is just like a habit of mine for being on the radio, resetting. But we're here with Wake Forest legend Les Johns, and I'm going to keep calling you that because I've followed your work for quite a while, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you taking the time out to join us today. I also want to make it very, very clear. The FCS joke, that was more a stab at Florida State. Almost called them FCSU. That was more a jab at Florida State. I have no hate in my heart whatsoever. But I do want to point out, Louisville, in the offseason, Louisville was that when the first ACC power rankings came out, we were right at 6 or 7. So it wasn't we didn't think we were going to have an off. Actually, everybody on the panel here, we have like a 5-person panel. I think the lowest amount of wins we predicted was 7 and the high being 9. I thought we were going to have a really good season, and then Mississippi happened, and it kind of tore the team's confidence down and the fan base's confidence down. I think this is going to be a really good game this week, and I think it's going to be one of those, it's cliche, but afterwards you're going to be like, man, it's a shame that one of those teams had to lose, because I see a lot of promise in Wake Forest, and I think that Louisville is still just building a very young team. We have Malik Cunningham that is, he's inconsistent at times, but when he can get running, man, running too, it's hard to stop him. But let me get to because I do that a lot, Les. I'll start talking about other things, and the train goes off the tracks, and then 90 minutes later we're still sitting here talking. So let me pull the emergency brake on that, and let's get back. Let me get back on topic. What does Wake Forest have to do to win this game versus Louisville after what you've seen from Louisville so far this season?
I mean, I just don't think they can contain on Malik Cunningham, I think, is the main key. I mean, he is such a dangerous weapon, and Wake has been at times in the past few years susceptible to the mobile quarterback. And they don't really – Hartman isn't a guy that's really going to chew up a bunch of yards, so they don't really face it a whole lot in practice. So, I think, what Cunningham brings to the table is something that has me concerned from a Wake Forest perspective. I think Wake will put up points against Louisville. I expect it will probably be somewhat of a high-scoring game. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, though, Wake will attack with a balanced offense. And they'll, like you talked about, 5 yards a carry, they'll grind out some yards on the ground and kind of try to wear the Louisville defense down. Wake's, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Wake plays at a rapid pace on offense. Yep. They don't huddle. They snap the ball quickly. They don't give you a chance to get your subs in. They don't substitute themselves on offense. So that might be something that rattles the cards a little bit. But I think the key for Wake, really, for a win, it sounds simplistic, or I hate to just say it's controlling Cunningham, but it's keeping him in check and not letting him make those scrambles on 3rd and 8 or whatever to extend drives. It's getting off the field and staying, in contain and making sure you've got a spy on him.
Absolutely. And Malik's thing is, if you can rattle him early, then which it took Florida State a couple of quarters, like they didn't start to. I felt honestly this game Saturday is going to be a lot like the one against Florida State. Now, obviously, better quality on both sides, but I feel like y'all are going to have the lead. We're going to make a comeback, and then y'all are going to hit that gut punch to ultimately win it in the end. But yeah, the key for me for Wake Forest to win is they have got to push they have got to slow the tempo. I'm sorry, they've got to slow the tempo down for Louisville offensively, because when Malik can get in a rhythm, that's when he's at his best. And if you notice from the first half versus Mississippi, second half versus Florida State, they slowed them down and they were able to do whatever they wanted to. So that is that's my key to victory for Wake Forest. Conversely,
well, the other thing to think about too is just the dramatic shift in the type of quarterback Wake Forest is facing.
Yeah.
Last week it was Brennan Armstrong, the guy that's just going to sit in the pocket and pick you apart down the field, versus Malik, who may not have as inaccurate as an arm, but can do so many other things and make plays with his feet. Wake got to the quarterback and sacked Armstrong 6 times, Friday night. They were they made him uncomfortable and made him feel their presence all night long. And obviously that had an impact, right? So it's going to be a completely different. They have to completely change the way they attack Louisville and Malik versus what they did against Armstrong. And I think sometimes it's tough to make those shifts. So we'll see how it works out.
Absolutely. Conversely, what does Louisville have to do to win this game? I'm asking you that, but I want to go ahead and throw my 2 cents in real quick. I feel like we got to come out in the first half ready to go. We got to keep up tempo. So far this season, we tend to take too long to get going. And you all are a good first half scoring team. Not only have you all outscored your opponents in all 4 games in the first half, but I believe, and again, with Virginia being thrown in there, I'm not sure if it held out yesterday, but I'm pretty sure y'all have also outscored everybody in the second half. Also outscored yourselves in the second half of all 4 games. It says 4 games, so I'm sure I wouldn't have wrote it down with that being true. So slowing you all down defensively, being able to protect against the big play. I did notice that the quarterback was a little less accurate when it come to dink and dunk passes. It seemed like he threw the ball a lot. Now, for the most part, he was fantastic, but I saw several throws where if it was a 5-yard throw, he threw it really low. Sometimes it wasn't very accurate at all. But he threw the deep ball beautifully. I will give him that. So let me restate it. I should have said that first. What does Louisville have to do to win this game tomorrow? What does Louisville have to do to win this? I wish it was tomorrow. I'm so excited about football.
A lot of work to do tonight. Then,
what does Louisville have to do to win the game this weekend?
That's the weird thing. It's like there's not just one thing you can take away, from a Wake Forest perspective. I would say the thing that would drive Wake Forest the craziest in terms of Louisville having effectiveness against Wake Forest would be as if they actually attacked Wake offensively in a diverse way. Like, I think Wake is expecting that Cunningham's going to fuel that engine. And I think if Louisville could get the running backs going and make a couple passes downfield and became more multi-dimensional offensively than what Wake is expecting, I think that's probably the best key to winning. I'm worried from a Wake Forest perspective on Malik going nuts, but I generally think that if a team is one-dimensional, Wake will bottle that up, just like they did last week against Armstrong, right?
Right.
But I think if Louisville can do multiple things offensively and make Wake have to second-guess where they're going to key in on, I think that's going to be the key to winning for Louisville.
And that's I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people think the same. They think the same way. They say, well, Louisville's a one-dimensional team. Malik's one-dimensional. He's also quite comparable to your all's quarterback. He's thrown for 1,000 yards so far this season, 62% completion percentage. He's thrown for 2,000 and 2,600 yards in his previous 2 seasons as well. So, but I get it because it does look like, honestly, with this offense that we run now, which it's mind-numbingly painful for those of us that are used to Bobby Petrino just throwing 70 up on the board every week. It's one of those ground and pound grinding offenses, and it just don't seem like Malik throws for a lot. But then you look up, he threw for 264 this week, 250 last week, 230 the week before, and it's like, okay, so he can do both. But I agree with you. If you all are able to contain Malik, then that deteriorates our chances greatly. But I tend to think that what we're going to have to do to win the game is just basically we're going to have to shut down the big play. That's something we did not do against Florida State even. They scored 13 seconds into the second half yesterday. UCF had 2 plays of 2 touchdown drives of 20 seconds or less in that game. No talent. Mississippi probably scored everyone in like 8 seconds. I don't remember. I blacked that game out from my mind on purpose. So before I wrap things up with you, Les, I want to ask one little final fun question. It's not serious like the other ones have been. For those because a lot of us have family in the Carolinas, a lot of us vacation in the Carolinas. So I want your opinion. What is your favorite Carolina vacation spot, and what is your favorite Carolina signature dish to eat?
My favorite vacation spot in the Carolinas, that's a tough one because where we live, we're like 3 hours from the mountains and 3 hours from the beach.
Gotcha.
But I will say that I prefer going in the Asheville area. Right before the football season started, during week 0, I actually completely shut out week 0 games. And me and my wife went up to a cabin in Asheville and spent the weekend. Nice. My daughter, who goes to Western Carolina University, which is probably just about an hour away from Asheville, her and her boyfriend joined us, and we just shut out the world, just hung out, enjoyed the mountains, ate, cooked our own food there, the fire pit, mountains, a good view, just kind of chilled out and enjoyed each other's company and didn't think about, work at all for 36 or 48 hours. So I would say
that's awesome
Asheville,
when you can do that.
Mountains with the multiple Carolina beaches coming in second. So that's the cool thing about where we live. Another cool thing about where I live is I'm a huge live music fan. I know this isn't what you asked. I've probably been to like more than 400 concerts in my life. I'm a huge live music fan. And where I live, there's the Greensboro Music Market, there's Charlotte, there's Winston-Salem, and even Raleigh isn't but like an hour and a half, 2 hours away for the right show. So, I've been blessed in terms of I've been able to see a lot of groups in concert over the last few years until our friend COVID, hit.
Right,
so,
right.
Hopefully we get back to a little bit more of normal in terms of that moving forward. My favorite food, I'm not going to say Carolina barbecue because they like to chop their barbecue instead of pull it.
Yeah.
I don't like chopped pork. I like pulled pork. But there was a great barbecue place in Winston-Salem called Bibbs that is now defunct. They pulled it and the sauce was fabulous. So I said I'm not going to say barbecue, but I guess I'm going to stick with it and say barbecue anyway. And Camel City Barbecue in Winston-Salem is a good second place finisher behind Bibbs, and they're actually still open. So I got to give them props.
There you go. If y'all are down that way, go ahead and visit them. How far are you away from we talked about the bigger colleges, but what about App State? How far are you away from Boone?
I'm about 2.5, 3 hours away from Boone. It's about the same distance as it is for me to Asheville,
Gotcha.
2 to 3 hours. I've only been there to watch one game. It was a game Wake won on a last-second blocked field goal. So okay. It was a really good experience, a lot of fun, and App usually has a pretty good football team. They've got a really good program.
They got some pretty good music down there too.
Coach, right?
Yeah. I said they got pretty good music down there too, because I believe that's where I know that's where Luke Combs attended, but I think Eric Church did as well.
I think I did see that. As well.
And both of them phenomenal musicians. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Then I apologize. But yeah, great. There's really, as somebody who's traveled the United States, I've told the story before on the podcast, but I'll tell it again. We didn't really have much growing up. It wasn't until I was a junior in high school that my mom finally graduated college. She was able to get the money to go to college, graduated college, help out dad. We went on this huge vacation before my senior year in high school. And then the very next summer, whatever states we didn't get that first vacation, we got at that second vacation. So I was very lucky and blessed to be able to go all over the country, there's not a lot of places that I have bad feelings about or was like, oh, no, I never want to go there again. I'm actually going to take my nieces this summer out west and do a lot of the, Yellowstone, Old Faithful, Grand Canyon, the Badlands, all that. Golden Gate Bridge, the Space Needle, all that stuff we're going to go do. There's really not anywhere that I've been that I was like, oh, I never want to go here again. So I North Carolina is definitely my cousin. She lives about, I want to say, about 45 minutes south of Charlotte. She's a veterinarian down there, so she's always telling me about how beautiful it is down there. And I've been through North Carolina on trips as well, and I like it down there. I mean, you're just not going to get me to say anything bad about anywhere. I love vacationing and seeing things, and that's why I wanted to ask you about that. So I appreciate you. You kind of waffled a little bit on the signature dish, but the vacation spot was solid. All right, last but not least, score prediction. I'm going to allow you, again, the legend, Les Johns, to go first.
I mean, I don't think Louisville fans are going to be too happy with this, but
it's okay.
Wake really hasn't had a close game yet, and I think Louisville will push the Deacs for a while, but then Wake will extend it out later. I'm going to go Wake. This is the first time I thought about a score. I'm going to say Wake 39-24.
Okay. I'm going to go a little bit different. Now, when we recorded the podcast and this morning, and I first thought about it, I had you all winning by 2 touchdowns. But then I started.
That's close to what. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I started, as the show went, I do this a lot. As we talk about the teams and we get into detail, my mind shifts a little bit, and I'm like, well, you know what? And then I saw that the line opened up at Wake Forest +7, so that made me think a little bit. So I curtailed my doomsday situation just a little bit. I still have you all winning 31-21. I think that the second half versus the staleness of the second half versus FSU is going to carry over. We're going to get one of those very slow starts like normal. I do think we're going to battle in the first half. Like I said earlier, I think y'all are going to pull away, and I think it's going to be you all running the ball. You all will average 6 yards a rush against us. But I will say this: if Louisville, if Louisville can get going and stay consistent for the rest of the year, maybe even in this game, I would watch out. I don't have the faith in them yet to say, okay, this is the Louisville, because we saw 4 games. We've saw probably about 3 different Louisville teams come out so far. So we'll wait and see. But I have you all winning by 10. They're at home and covering the spread, more than covering the spread. And I still think it's going to be a good game in another Louisville Wake Forest Classic too. Les, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate you.
It's my pleasure, Jeremy. Thanks for reaching out. Best luck in the game. I don't guess you're coming for the game.
No, I'm not. It's odd. All of our away games this year are in North Carolina. We're at Duke, at NC State, at Wake. We had the neutral game versus Mississippi, and I want to say EKU was at home. Central Florida was
at Florida State too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. I meant remaining. That's all we have. We have 3 away games. This is an unusual year because normally we have 6 away, 6 home. This year, I want to say we have 7 home, 1 neutral,
home,
and then 4 away.
Yeah.
And that happens to us once about every 10 years. We get more home games than away games. But nevertheless, that's funny. Can you let the people know where they can find all your hard work and your social media handle as well, please?
Yeah, of course, you can find my work at Demon Deacons Digest. That's at the 24/7 Sports Network. If you just Google 24/7 Sports Wake Forest, you'll find me pretty easy. Or you can Google Demon Deacons Digest. And then you can find me at Twitter at Les_Johns. I promise I won't say anything derogatory about the Cards for the next 2 or 3 weeks at least.
Well, we appreciate that so much. We wanted to give a shout-out again to all of our fine sponsors: Fitness Market, Shack in the Back Barbecue, Four Pegs Beer Lounge, Derby City Lawn and Landscaping, and All-American Pool and Supply. We're working on more sponsorships right now. We're planning on expanding, may have a couple of name, image, and likeness deals that we're working on. I'm not going to tell you all that just yet because then I can't tease it for a few more weeks till we announce it. However, if you'd like to sponsor the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast, give us a call, 502-694-0375, or you can find us on social media. On Facebook, we're at Cardinal Sports Zone, 3 separate words. On Facebook and Instagram, we are Card Sport Zone. On YouTube, we are Cardinal Sports Zone. Individually, you can find me at Jeremy_CSZ on all your social media websites. You can find the podcast, though, on all the podcast avenues: Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google, Amazon, iHeart, over 125 different avenues you can find us for podcasts. Go to the podcast, hit subscribe now, listen to it 100 times a day, whatever you want to do. We appreciate your all support. If you've not got to catch all the episodes of the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast, do us a favor. Do yourself a favor. Go back to the CardinalSportsZone.com, click the podcast tab, hit the drop-down menu, select CSZ Podcast. While you're there, check out our exclusives on CardinalSportsZone.com, the place that I'll begin. We do want to give a shout-out and a thank you to everyone who's out there sharing the podcast. We appreciate all the love and support. Once again, I want to thank you for coming on. You made our day. I'm glad that we started doing this, and this is something that we will continue on going forward. But again, thanks. I appreciate you.
Glad to be on. Great work, Jeremy, and best of luck with the podcast moving forward, man.
Thank you, Les. Until next time, this has been Game Day Prep, and this has been the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast. And do not forget to catch it. This game is at 12:30 on ESPN3 this Saturday. Can't wait.